Radio. The Peter Schiff Show.
855-4-SCHIFF is the phone number. You know, I've been talking about the George Zimmerman trial that is now underway. I think it's day 3 since they've actually begun the official trial since the jury selection. And one of, the big problems with the case is the way the media has covered it. And, if you remember when this first became a story, all of the headlines read something like, white man kills unarmed black teen, or some variant of that. He shoots unarmed African-American youth, boy, whatever. But they always mentioned the race of both the person who did the shooting and the person who was shot. In every story, race was the central issue. Now, I've talked on this show, and I brought up several occasions where there was a crime where the perpetrator was black and the victim was white, yet no mention at all of the race of either party. Now, the same thing happened again today. A viewer, a listener to the show, sent me a link to a story, and it's a horrible story, and you can see the entire thing was captured in it by a nanny cam. But somebody broke into a mother's home, just broke in. She was there with her 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. The guy broke in and beat the crap out of her. Unarmed woman just sitting there, put up no resistance, beat the crap out of her, slugged her in the face, kicked her in the face, put her in the hospital. And after he finished beating her, he threw her down a flight of stairs. And then he robbed her. All right? Now, I read the story. I read the story 5 or 6 different places. Not once did the story mention the race of the intruder or the victim. Now, the intruder was black and the victim was white. Now, I'm not saying that race is important. I don't think race was important in the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case. My beef is with the inconsistency and the double standard. Why is race not an issue in this case, but it was an issue in the Trayvon Martin case? Now, if the intruder had been white and the mother had been black, you bet your bottom dollar that this would be a huge story. I wouldn't have had to find out about it because somebody emailed it to me. It probably would have been on the network news. And what would the headlines have been? White man beats African-American mom. It would have been a huge story, and it all would have been about racism. Racism had nothing to do with this. I don't think this intruder cared whether or not the woman he was beating was white or black. He's just a criminal. He's a thug that belongs in jail. It's not a race story. And the fact that George Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin, he didn't shoot him because he was black. He didn't report him because he was black. Probably even though statistically blacks commit more crimes than white. So from that statistic probability, maybe being black would make you more suspicious, especially if you're a young black male. Maybe if it was an elderly black woman, he wouldn't have cared. But if you're young, you're black, and you're male, and you're dressed the way Trayvon Martin was, a lot of criminals dress and look that way. So maybe he could have been suspicious. But if you remember, George Zimmerman didn't even know that Trayvon was black because he said he looks black, right? He didn't say he was black. When he was asked about it, he said he looks black. He didn't say he was suspicious because he was black. He was suspicious because he didn't recognize him and because of the way he was acting. He thought he was on drugs. It was raining. He didn't know why he was outside. And so there are a lot of things. It wasn't a race story, but the media made it about race. But this story, now the only way that I knew that the intruder was black and the victim was white was because they had the video cam, and I watched the footage. Now, somebody might say, well, there was no reason to mention race because all you had to do is watch the video and you can tell. Well, then there was no reason to mention race in the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman story because all the stories had the pictures of this nice little boy, this smiling little boy. We could see that he was black. They had pictures of George Zimmerman. We can see that he wasn't black. So why was it race? And again, why was George Zimmerman a white Hispanic. Because first they were calling him white. And then when the media found out that he was Hispanic, they were like, crap, what are we going to do? Well, we'll just say he's a white Hispanic. Because if George Zimmerman had done something that was good, or at least that people thought was good, had he won an award, had he saved a bunch of children from a burning building, had he been appointed to the Supreme Court, had he been elected president of the United States, he wouldn't be the first white Hispanic president of the United States. No, he would be the first Hispanic president, right? Anything that George Zimmerman does good, he's a Hispanic. But if he does something bad, he's a white Hispanic, right? We don't say that Barack Obama is the first white African-American president. But I don't know. I mean, maybe if he had been arrested for doing something bad, maybe if he had beaten up somebody and been put in jail, he would have been described as a white African-American. I don't know. In fact, even if you read all the stories about George Zimmerman's parents, they say they describe themselves as Hispanic Americans. What do you mean they describe themselves as Hispanic? I mean, they're not Hispanic Americans? I mean, we shouldn't believe them? It's just a description? President Obama describes himself as an African American. We don't say that. He's half white. He's half black. He can describe himself as white. He's as white as he is black, right? But no, I mean, again, it's all the media. Why does the media want to do this? Because a crime is not a big story. George Zimmerman shooting Trayvon Martin was not a big story. White racist guns down a black kid, that's a big story. That's what the media did. The media drums this out of proportion. And then you get the civil rights organizations that have an agenda, and they want to believe, the left wants to believe that we're just a racist society, because then we need more government to stamp out all the racism. And the left doesn't want to believe that the reason we have so much poverty is because of socialism and because of a failed welfare state. They want to think there's a bunch of poor people because we're all a bunch of racists. So whenever they can twist a crime, whenever there's a black victim and potentially a white aggressor, it's a great opportunity for everybody to push their agenda and claim that there's some racism involved. But, of course, when the shoe is on the other foot, if the victim is white and the criminal happens to be black, it's never about race. Nothing. It doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that race was an issue, that the newspaper should be saying black man assaults white mother. I'm not saying that that's what it should say. I'm just saying that it shouldn't have said it with respect to Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. And if they're going to do it with George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, to be consistent, they should do it now. So it's the media. It's the reporters that are a bunch of racists. They're the ones that make it about race. They're the ones that deliberately leave out race when the black person is committing the crime and the white person is the victim. And they're the ones that go out of their way to insert race when it's the white person that's the suspected criminal, even though I don't even believe that in the Zimmerman case, George Zimmerman is the criminal. I think George Zimmerman is the victim. Even though Trayvon Martin died, he died committing a criminal act. What if there was no nanny cam, right? And what if this intruder had busted into this woman's house and instead of beating the crap out of her, she had shot him because she had a gun? Would she have been the criminal? Would he have been the victim? No, even though he didn't kill her, he might have, he could have. And I think that this woman, even before he threw the first punch, if you're a mother and you're alone at home and you got two kids and some big guy, I don't care what color he is, some big guy breaks into your house and you have a gun, shoot him. And don't shoot him to wound him, shoot him to kill him. Because you don't know what the hell he's going to do. And it's his fault for breaking into your house in the first place. Even if he's not intending to kill you, he shouldn't have broken in. You knock at the door. Maybe he went to the wrong home by mistake. Still, maybe he's delivering a package. You don't bust out someone's door. You ring the doorbell and you wait politely until they answer. If you break down somebody's door and bust into a house, if you get shot, you get shot. And that's what happened to Trayvon Martin. If Trayvon Martin attacks somebody and starts beating them, now George Zimmerman didn't know how many times Trayvon Martin was going to bash his head into the concrete. He wasn't going to find out. He wasn't going to stick around to see if Trayvon Martin was going to stop and walk away and he wasn't going to die. You defend yourself. If this woman had a gun, she could have used it and she could have shot him. Right? Now, would it have said, would the media have reported it that way? Would it have been white woman, guns down, unarmed black man? Is that how they would have reported it? Had that been what happened? I don't know. Now, obviously, with the nanny cam, we can see what happened. But had she shot him before he even started to attack her, they might have said, "Oh, she's a racist. She just assumed that this black man was there to harm her." If somebody busts into your house, especially when you got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, you should assume that the person is there to harm you. If I was the husband of this woman and somebody busted into the house, I would want her to shoot first and ask questions later. Why stick around? This guy, this animal that attacked this woman, and if you don't think he's an animal, watch this video, right? He could have killed her. He could have killed the 3-year-old daughter, who was sitting right there watching TV as this guy was beating the crap out of his mother. He could have gone upstairs and killed the 1-year-old boy. Had he gotten shot, he would have deserved it. Now, had it been a mistake, had he not even intended to attack her, it would have been a tragedy, but she still would have been justified in shooting him because she could have feared for her life and her child's life. So, did George Zimmerman, was his intention to kill Trayvon Martin? Was Trayvon Martin's intention to kill George Zimmerman? We don't know. It probably wasn't. Did he actually say, "You're going to die today"? Maybe he did. Was he joking? Maybe. Maybe he didn't mean it. But how is George Zimmerman, with a bloody nose and his face getting bashed and his head getting bashed into the cement, with just seconds to make a decision, how is he supposed to know that? He's got a loaded gun in his belt. How does he know that Trayvon Martin is going to take that gun and shoot him with it? He can't make those decisions, so he's put in this situation where he has to react.